Thank you, Beth, and thank you, Will, for that rendition of We Wish You a Merry Christmas. So good evening and welcome, friends. Because of the increasing inclement weather, we meet as we did last year with COVID on Zoom. So thank you all for coming tonight. Tonight marks the 10th anniversary of Christmas Eve services at Buff. I did not realize that until I looked back in my word and saw that we started this in 2013, 2012, sometime like 2013. So this service is dedicated to the idea that each of us is an amalgam of light and darkness, and that the best choice for a vital, meaningful life is to let your light shine in the darkness, even when the darkness seems overwhelming. It is a choice that one must make again and again and again. Our vehicle for tonight is the Christmas story. Some of you may wonder why a congregation where so many different religions perspectives are represented is telling the story of the baby Jesus. We tell it because it is one of the central stories of Western civilization. Millions of people around the world are telling the story tonight because they find spiritual sustenance in it. Maybe we will find something meaningful as we retell it here again. A thing to remember as you listen to what I have to say here is that the story is not really about some far off, entirely other God or some people that may have lived a long time ago. The story is about you and me. All the characters in the story are parts of you and me. Even the God character and the baby Jesus are a part of you and me.
We gather together on this Christmas Eve as fellow sojourners looking for light, for hope, for peace, and for love. We gather as people from many backgrounds, many faiths, many cultures, and many spiritual paths. But as we light this chalice, we gather as one body, looking to the Nativity for its message to all of humanity. Its message is that there is light, there is hope, there is peace, there is love.
So most good stories have a backstory, and the Christmas story is no exception. One way to read the Christian Bible is to see it as the thousands of years old story of humanity's estrangement from God and God's several attempts to bridge that gap. Once upon a time, a long time ago, there was only God. God became lonely and yearned for company. So he created a garden world and many plants and animals. He was still, however, very lonely. So he decided to make a creature a little more like himself, someone he could talk to. He created people, a man and a woman. For a while, things went smashingly. God and his people spent hours chatting in the garden and then just enjoying each other's company. One day, one of the people, Eve, against God's specific instructions, ate from the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. This changed everything. God became very angry and threw Eve and her husband Adam out of the garden. Once again, God was lonely, and doggone it, the people did okay without him. They prospered and multiplied. So, God became a little envious and a whole lot angry, so he sent a flood that covered the whole earth, and everything died except for a person named Noah, who was able to load his wife, his kids, and a lot of animals on a big boat called an ark. God figured that all the dying would surely show people that they could not do without God. It didn't work. People went right back to their old ways of getting along just fine without God. They continued to multiply. Now, God was really starting to steam, but he managed a little restraint and decided that if the people just had a few simple rules to follow, say about 10, that they would learn to appreciate God and maybe drop by for a chat once in a while. So God gave Moses, a disgraced prince and wilderness guide, 10 rules carved in stone to take to the people. It didn't help. It turns out that if you start laying down rules, people just find ever more creative ways of breaking them. Next, God decided to try a little reason. So he sent some representatives called prophets to reason with the people. Guess what? That didn't work either. It turns out that people are just not all that reasonable. So let's go to our next hymn. Thank you. And now for the Christmas story. For many years, the lonely God contemplated how to bring his people to him. He started observing his people and realized that maybe he had been coming on a little strong. He saw that the people seemed to love and care for one another, especially their children, and double especially their babies. God said to himself, babies get it all and they don't have to earn any of it. In fact, babies, it appeared to God, seemed to be pretty wretched, demanding little creatures. Yet they got all the good stuff, all the stuff God had wanted for all those years. God decided to come to the people as a little baby. And even though the birth happened in a cold, manure-littered stable surrounded by a circus of gawkers, while overhead a star shone brightly and a bunch of winged angels squawked away, it turned out to be the right move. Who doesn't love babies after all? The moral of the story is if you want to bring yourself into the world, you may have to drop the God act and forget about watery temper tantrums, laying down the law or sending stern envoys. The only way you will find a path where the stars align and the angels sing is to open your heart and be authentic and vulnerable like a little baby. And do most importantly, remember that the world needs you. If it didn't, you would not be here. Now there is more to the story. The baby God grew up and started telling everyone such things as they were very valuable, like a pearl of great price, that they, each and every one of them, had an important job to do. Like yeast has an important job to do in baking bread, or a tiny mustard seed is important because its job is to grow into something really magnificent. Probably the most important thing he told the people was, if you really want to live, don't hide your light under a dark bushel. By this he meant, your biggest job is to keep shining your light, no matter how dark it gets. Eventually, some of the people who liked the darkness got very angry. They liked the darkness because the darkness had made them powerful, influential, and rich. They thought that if people let their light shine too much, that they would lose their power and wealth. So they made up a plan to make the God-man stop talking. That is, however, a story for another time. An important thing we need to remember is that we need to keep our light shining even when it gets very dark, because here's the secret of the whole thing. When the light shines in the darkness becomes the light. Wow, think about that. You, little o you, can turn darkness into light. Another important thing to remember is that life is not something you live, life is what you are. This means that all the characters in the story of the birth of the baby God are parts of you. Even the baby Jesus is a part of you. He is creative, redemptive love. So the moral of the story is, it is your job to bring love into the world. Now, right now, Beth is going to play Silent Night for us. I invite you, while the music plays softly, to light your candles and reflect on the light that you need to bring into the world. Or maybe there is some darkness in your life that you need to turn into light. Maybe there is someone who is right now being overcome with darkness who could use a little bit of your light to get along. Or maybe it is just okay to sit with the light a while and let it guide you to where you need to shine. Any of these ways is okay. I invite you to dim your home lights and light your candles, or as I'm going to do, to turn the switch on in my candle, and sit quietly. And Beth is going to play Silent Night for us, and then we will continue with our Chalice extinguishing. But just take a moment to relax. Let the turn the lights off in your room you're in if you can. Mine are off already. I have my candle here that looks like a real candle, but it's not. But it serves the purpose. So take a moment to just sit quietly and think on the interplay of light and dark in our lives. Thank you, Beth. And now Jim and Lisa will extinguish our chalice, and we will have our benediction. And if anyone would like to stick around and just chat for a little bit, certainly you are welcome to do that.
We extinguish the chalice tonight with words from Amanda Gorman. There is always light. If only we are brave enough to see it, if only we are brave enough to be it. Blessed be.
Blessed be. Thank you, Lisa and Jim. And all my friends, go in peace. I wish you a happy rest of your Christmas and holiday season. And we won't have church tomorrow. It's Christmas Day, but we will see each other next Sunday, which